If you're like me and live in a rent house, you can't afford to put holes in your walls because for some reason, landlords don't like that. But if you're trying to put together a studio to mix in, to record in, you oftentimes need treatment, especially in little rooms like this, which is a refurbished bedroom. So let me share with you the simple solution to putting treatment up in rooms just like this. Hey Chogma everybody, my name is DShack. I'm a recording engineer and producer in and around Nashville, and I love to make stuff. If you don't already, please help me out and like and subscribe on this video. Let me know down in the comments if this is helpful to you and what kind of videos you want to see next. So for the last 2 years, I've scratched my head trying to figure out some way to get treatment up off the floor and onto the walls, but I can't afford to put holes in my walls. I looked all across the internet, I went on YouTube, I went on deep Reddit threads, I went everywhere I could think of to try to find somebody's solution to this, and nothing that I saw I liked. You know, there's a lot of people that do stands and lean them, and that's fine, but I didn't really want that. Felt like it took up a lot of space and just didn't look clean to me. Of course, a lot of people use the little black RLX style foam pads, which are fine and cool and everything, but really those don't do near enough treatment if you're gonna use your room for mixing. So in the end, my solution came out of this brainstorm idea while I was trying to figure out how to make more space for more storage in my room. I have all these reel-to-reels like you see behind me, and I have some others in and around that I wanna be able to stack up. And it hit me one day, why not make a shelf, and instead of having the back be a piece of solid plywood like most bookshelves, use acoustic treatment. So now you might be thinking, Dale, you're crazy, acoustic treatment's not sturdy enough. Well, let me tell you, if you make a frame, and just like every other 2 foot by 4 foot video on acoustic panels on YouTube, you can use that as the backing plate. It's strong enough, it's sturdy enough, especially when paired with a couple of little metal brackets that I'm about to show you. So, without anything else, let's go over and I'm gonna show you some footage of building this so you can make your own too. First things first, we have to make sure that we have all of our wood set out and ready to go. Now, I had actually had a few of these pieces pre-cut prior to filming this because I'd made another one of these before this one as a trial run and had a few extra things cut to the right length, so I didn't have to go through and recut everything. Basically what we're doing is taking two 2x2s that are 6 foot tall and running them parallel to each other with a bunch of these little 1x4s that are cut at 10 inches long to create the spacing, and this is actually what our shelves are going to sit on. Now I made sure that all of these shelves are identical in spacing, starting with the first one that's flush on the top and going down from there. I don't remember the exact numbers right off the top of my head, but I just ran my overall height through ChatGPT and let it spit out some numbers for me. Now the one that's on the bottom is an inch off the floor, which I accounted for when I made my first calculations to keep everything even. Now this part is the part that took the absolute longest and was the most work of the entire project. Sanding this was a beast. As you can see here, we have all of these different horizontal and vertical planes that we have to make sure are sanded down before we can make a finished product. And the little palm sander was not doing it, so I had to bring out the belt sander, which really wore my arms out. It took me actually a couple days to sand this one and the first shelf down that I'd made as well. But once everything was rough sanded in with that belt sander, I was able to go back to the palm sander to finish it up at a lot higher grit and with a lot more finesse. Now, unfortunately, I forgot to film any content of me actually staining this first set of stain on this, but this is how it turned out, and I think it turned out really nice. Now, I used a stain that I wasn't able to find a second can of. I'd had this first stain for quite a while and thought I had enough, but came woefully short. I really liked it, but I couldn't find the identical match for this second one. But I was able to find a gloss version of the stain, even though I didn't necessarily want a gloss finish on this, but at least it kept the same color. Now, because of that, I chose to go with something intentionally different when it came to the actual horizontal brackets. I'd never stained anything before in a blue stain. This was the first time, so we thought we'd try it with something called Vintage Blue. And I was really worried when I first opened the can because it was all kind of gray and brown, but of course once you stir it, it came to life with the nice light blue, very beach vibe, which I wasn't entirely sure I would like, But now that it's done, I really like it. It gives me the ability to lean into an intentional contrast between the oak stain and something different, which no one other than people watching this video will ever know that the whole reason I did this was because I ran out of the original stain. One thing I learned as I went through this, though, is that pine does not like this light blue stain. It definitely took a second coat, and I might have even put a third on there and not filmed it. I can't remember. But either way, you have to apply it liberally and let it sit. Now let's move on to the actual fitting of this thing together. What I used here are two sets of brackets. This first one, as you can see, is a T-style bracket that I just got at a local hardware store for a couple dollars, some screws. This is putting into the one that I'd already dry fit before, so I have holes already pre-drilled in this. I made sure it was flush with the top, and I put this T-bracket about 1/3 of the way down on the back panel, which is, of course, our acoustic treatment. And as I did this, you can definitely tell there's a lot of flex and give in this. And so you just make sure that it's straight, make sure that it continues to run parallel with your acoustic treatment when you're putting the shelf on there, because it will try to twist on you. The second style of bracket that I used for this is just a simple L bracket. Again, I already had holes pre-drilled in this one, as this is actually the shelf that I'd built in the first place as a trial run before I made this video. But if you are putting these in for the first time, use a drill bit before you start putting these screws in. Otherwise, you run the risk of splitting your wood. Now, my drill wouldn't fit in all of the holes. There's one of them on one side that it just wouldn't fit. Couldn't get it in there. But 5 of the 6 is enough to hold this. This helps really lock in and give a lot of flex left and right and up and down using both sets of brackets. Now let's stand it up and see how it looks. And forgive my terrible upholstery job. I am not great at that. If you have any good tips for that, let me know. But it stands, and it stands well. It stands on its own even without the horizontal brackets. Now, one thing I learned, by the way, as you try to flip this over to add the L brackets on the back, is that if you use one of these side planks to tie it together, it'll give you enough tension crossways to help you flip this thing without running the risk of tearing out your T brackets. Better yet, though, if you have a friend, have them help you flip this thing, because turning this over between the two sets of brackets is not an easy feat without causing damage when you do it by yourself. Finally, we get it into position and can put the shelves on. And these are floating shelves. These shelves are not screwed in. These shelves are not attached to it in any way. One thing I didn't show you when I built the shelves themselves is I added a little dowel rod. All I did was take an 1/8 inch dowel rod, cut it into short, maybe 2-inch long pieces, drilled into the shelf and set it in there with some wood glue before I stained it. These dowel rods are to help keep the lateral movement from being really all that much. That way it kind of helps tie together the shelf as a unit. However, these are not structural. These can be popped off and moved, so if you ever have to move this thing, it's as easy as just lifting them up and getting them out of there. However, because of how they're built with the side pieces, the ladder pieces on the verticals, this thing is plenty strong to hold just about anything you need without any issues. And a final look here with stuff on it when it's all put together. Let me know what you think. I'm really happy with this. This is not something I've seen anywhere else online and is already extremely functional for me in my studio. And one little look at these little dowel rods. This also helps keep those shelves from just randomly sliding off. So as you can see, it's really simple to put these things together. There's not a lot to them. That doesn't necessarily mean it's not time consuming though. It took me several days to put all of this stuff together, although most of that was sanding and staining, but it is a rather simple process. I mean, these are just some stick frames with some shelves. So whether this is something that's going to be useful and pertinent to you, let me know. I find these really useful. I think they look nice, and I'm gonna be building a few more of these that are a little bit bigger. But let me tell you a few things that I've learned through the process of making this that I would do differently next time. First and foremost was my biggest mistake on the second one that I made, the one that I walked through on this video with, not the one I built before and stained along, but it's that I didn't dry fit the products and put it all together before I went through the staining process. If I'd spent the time to make sure that everything was exactly as it needed to be, all of my shelves would fit perfectly, but instead a few of these I'm gonna actually have to make some notches in to make those shelves fit. I didn't allow for enough space in between in the horizontal plane for two planks to sit next to each other on two of the shelves, which is just a blatant user mistake that would easily have been fixed if I just paid attention. Secondly, if you're gonna do this, get better 2x2s than what I did. I just grabbed the super cheap stuff from the local hardware store and it was really rough. That's why this took as long as it did to build. Because like I said, most of that time was spent sanding. This stuff was extremely rough. I had to get out the belt sander, as you saw, and then a bunch of other sanders, and spent hours and hours and hours sanding. In fact, my arms, I could continue to feel that tingle from sanding for one of the days was like 4 days afterwards. I could still feel my arms just kind of like vibrate and hum, which I didn't really like. I was like, maybe that's a little nerve damage or something. I don't really know. Either way, get better 2x2s than what I did. I'm sure you can get some better ones at like Lowe's or Home Depot, which is not where I went for these, but where I'll probably go in the future. And lastly, if you want them to look really, really nice, don't do what I did in the staining and go fast. Take your time with it. I was really impatient and slopped it on there, which means there's places where you can see run lines and run marks, which I'm not a master carpenter, and I'm not gonna be looking that closely at these, but I'll know that they're there. Other people who come in might not, but I'll know that they're there. And I would like a better product than that. So just take your time. Take your time, don't hurry with these things, and play around with the designs. These have been plenty strong to put heavy stuff on. Like you can see behind me, I actually have one of my tape machines on the shelf right now, and that one weighs roughly 40 pounds, and that's all just supported by this. So these shelves are plenty strong to support most things you need to do, and it adds acoustic treatment up off the ground for your home studio and provides a practical use outside of just something to hold your treatment up. So if you like this idea, and if you make this idea, let me know. I want to see how you make it and how you can make it better than I did. I'm sure so many of you out there are better craftsmen and woodworkers than I am. Let me know what you've done to make this your own. You can find me on Instagram at DShack Official. You can drop a comment down below on this video. Please like and subscribe. It really helps me out and encourages me to keep making videos just like this.